Honestly, have you ever looked at the sheer, bewildering variety of religions on this planet? The thousands upon thousands of gods, goddesses, spirits, and saviors, each demanding absolute, exclusive belief, and thought to yourself, they can't all be right. It's a mathematically and logically sound intuition. And if they can't all be right, it opens the door to a far more profound and interesting possibility, that perhaps none of them are. That the entire spectacular, often terrifying, and sometimes beautiful edifice of religion isn't a divine revelation beamed down from the heavens, but a human invention hammered into shape in the forge of our own minds. Welcome to the God Mirage. This is a channel for the curious, for the skeptical, for those who suspect that the great shimmering image of God on the horizon may, upon closer inspection, be a trick of the light, an artifact of our own human needs, fears, and desires. We are not here to mock for mockery's sake, but to understand. To look directly into that blinding sun, not to be scorched, but to comprehend the light, the heat, and the intricate shadows it casts upon our civilization. In this video, we begin an archaeological dig, not into soil and rock, but into the bedrock of belief itself. We are going to explore the compelling, overwhelming evidence that religion was not given to us, but created by us. It's a strange position to be in, isn't it? To be a skeptic. In most corners of our world, to question the divine is to place yourself in a distinct minority, to swim against a powerful cultural and historical current. So let's get a sense of our global community of thinkers. In the comments below, tell us where you're watching from and perhaps a little about what the religious landscape is like there. Is questioning the norm, or is it a quiet act of rebellion? Then be sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an expedition into the mirage. The primal canvas, our pattern-seeking brains. Before a single prayer was uttered, before the first altar was built or the first holy book was penned, the blueprint for God was already being drafted. Not in the heavens, but in the soft, 3-pound universe of the human brain. To understand why humanity invented religion, we first have to understand the cognitive toolkit we were working with. Our minds are not blank slates, passively receiving information from the world. They are active, aggressive interpreters shaped by millions of years of evolution where survival depended on making quick, often imperfect, judgments. One of the most fundamental features of our brain is its insatiable hunger for patterns. We are, by our very nature, pattern detection machines. We see constellations in the random scatter of stars, we hear melodies in the rhythm of the rain, and most famously, we see faces everywhere. This tendency, known as pareidolia, is why we can see a man in the moon, a grumpy old man in the front of a car, or the face of a messiah in a piece of toast. It seems trivial, a mere curiosity, but its evolutionary roots are profound. The early hominid who saw a vague, tiger-like pattern of stripes in the tall grass and fled survived. The hominid who dismissed it as a random play of light and shadow, who waited for high-definition, peer-reviewed confirmation of a predator, often became lunch. Evolution selected for a brain that was trigger-happy with its pattern recognition. It is far better from a survival standpoint to make 1,000 false positives, to see a predator that isn't there, than to make one single false negative. We are the descendants of the paranoid ones. But it goes deeper than just seeing shapes. We are also wired with what cognitive scientists call a hyperactive agency detection device, or HADD. Agency is the capacity of an actor to act in a given environment. It implies intention, will, and purpose. Our brains are hyperactive in attributing this agency to the world around us. A rustle in the bushes is not just the wind, it's something or someone moving. A sudden rockfall is not just a consequence of erosion and gravity, it feels like the mountain threw it. A bout of sickness is not just a biological process, it feels like an attack, a malevolent force acting upon you. Again, the evolutionary advantage is crystal clear. Assuming that an ambiguous event is caused by an intelligent agent, a mind, is a very safe bet. If the rustle in the bushes is an agent, it could be a predator or a rival. Fleeing or preparing to fight is the correct response. If it's just the wind, you've lost nothing but a few calories. If you assume it's the wind and you're wrong, you lose everything. This hyperactivity in detecting agency means that our ancestors lived in a world that wasn't empty and mechanical, but filled with unseen intentions, with invisible minds. The world was not a collection of objects, it was a society of subjects. Now let's add a third, crucial ingredient from our cognitive toolkit: theory of mind. This is our ability to understand that other beings have minds, beliefs, desires, and intentions that are different from our own. It's what allows for complex social interaction, for empathy, for deception, and for cooperation. It's how you know that your friend might be sad even if they say they're fine. We are experts at modeling other minds. And what did we do with this sophisticated social software? We applied it to the agents we were already hyperactively detecting all around us. So the process looks something like this. First, our pattern recognition system sees a strange shape in a swirling vortex of wind and dust pareidolia. Second, our hyperactive agency detection device screams that this isn't just a random weather event. It's an agent, a willful entity, HADD. But we don't stop there. We then engage our theory of mind. We ask, what does this wind spirit want? Is it angry? Why is it angry? Perhaps it's angry because we took water from the river without giving thanks. It has intentions just like a person. In that moment, a scientific phenomenon, a dust devil, is transformed into a supernatural being with motives, emotions, and a relationship to human morality. It is here in the fusion of these cognitive biases that the very first gods were born, not as grand, omnipotent creators, but as localized, moody, and deeply personal forces that needed to be understood, appeased, and negotiated with. Our brains, built for social survival on the savannah, simply projected their most successful strategy, social intelligence, onto the entire cosmos. The universe became a neighborhood, and humanity was ready to meet the neighbors. The first sparks animism and the spirit world. With a brain primed to see faces in the static and intention in the wind, early humanity didn't step into an empty, mechanical world. They stepped into a world that was already crowded, buzzing with life and consciousness in every rock, river, and tree. This earliest, most fundamental form of religious belief is called animism. It is the belief that a spiritual essence or soul animates the entire world. It's not just that humans have souls, it's that the mountain has a soul, the river has a soul, the great oak tree has a soul, and the prey you are about to hunt has a soul that must be respected. For tens of thousands of years, in hunter-gatherer societies across the globe, this was the default setting for human spirituality. It's important to understand how different this is from modern organized religion. There was no single, all-powerful God. There were no holy books, no commandments carved in stone, no cathedrals. The world of animism was profoundly democratic, even egalitarian. The spirit of the river wasn't necessarily more important than the spirit of the bear, just different. They were all players in a complex, interconnected cosmic drama, and humans were just one player among many. This worldview was not an abstract philosophy. It was a deeply practical guide to survival. It was a form of proto-science and proto-ecology. The belief that a river had a spirit that could be angered by pollution or disrespect was in effect a powerful environmental protection policy. You didn't overfish or poison the water, not because you understood the long-term ecological consequences, but because you feared angering a powerful local entity that could retaliate with floods or drought. The belief that the spirit of the slain mammoth had to be honored with rituals and thanks ensured a sense of respect and gratitude for the source of your food, fostering a mindset that prevented wasteful slaughter and encouraged a sustainable relationship with the ecosystem. In this world, the key religious figure was not the priest, who serves as an intermediary to a distant god, but the shaman. The shaman was a technician of the sacred, a negotiator and a diplomat to the spirit world. Through trances, rituals, and a deep knowledge of local lore and nature, the shaman would journey into the spirit realm to heal the sick by retrieving a lost soul or fighting off a malevolent spirit, to divine the future by asking the spirits where the herds would migrate, or to ensure a successful hunt by placating the animal spirits. The shaman's authority didn't come from a divine decree, but from their proven results. If the shaman's rituals consistently led to successful hunts and healthy tribes, their power grew. If they failed, their credibility vanished. It was a results-based spirituality. This was a world explained. The terrifying randomness of existence was given a narrative structure. Why did lightning strike the tallest tree? The thunder spirit was showing its power. Why did a child fall sick? They must have offended a forest spirit or had their soul stolen by a malevolent ghost. Every event, good or bad, had a cause rooted in the web of spiritual relationships that surrounded the tribe. This didn't necessarily make the world safer, but it made it meaningful. And crucially, it offered a sense of control. If a negative event was caused by an angry spirit, then that spirit could potentially be appeased. Offerings could be made, rituals performed, apologies given. Humans were no longer helpless victims of a chaotic universe. They were active participants who could influence outcomes through their actions and their reverence. Animism was humanity's first grand attempt to turn the terrifying, impersonal it of the natural world into a you that could be spoken to, understood, and perhaps even persuaded. The gods of the harvest, from spirits to deities. For hundreds of thousands of years, humanity had been a wanderer, living in small, mobile bands, taking what they needed from a world full of spirits. Their religious concerns were immediate and local: the spirit of the forest they were in, the animal they were tracking. Then somewhere around 10,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened, a change so profound it would forever alter our societies, our diets, and our gods. We learned to tame the earth. The Neolithic Revolution, the dawn of agriculture, was not just a revolution in food production. It was a revolution in human consciousness. Settling down changed everything. The old anxieties of the hunter, where is the next meal, were replaced by the new, far more complex anxieties of the farmer. The farmer's concerns were no longer just about the here and now. They were about the future, about the cyclical patterns of the seasons. The new enemies were not the charging mammoth, but the slow, silent killers. Drought that cracks the earth, floods that wash away the seeds, blight that withers the stalks, and pests that devour the grain. These were problems on a scale that the old, local spirits were ill-equipped to handle. A local river spirit might control its own banks, but it couldn't bring rain to an entire region. The spirit of a single tree was of little use when an entire field of wheat was failing. The problems had become bigger, more abstract, and more tied to vast, powerful forces of nature. And so humanity's gods had to evolve to match. The small, local animist spirits began to coalesce, to merge and grow into something much larger, more powerful, and more specialized. Humanity needed a god who managed the rain, not just for one bend in the river, but for the whole valley. They needed a goddess who governed the fertility of the soil itself, not just one patch of land. They needed a sun god to ensure the warmth and light necessary for growth. This is the birth of the pantheon. The world of countless relatively equal spirits was slowly being replaced by an organized bureaucracy of specialized deities. These new gods were no longer our peers, they were our managers. They were more powerful, more distant, and their concerns were grander. And just as society on Earth was changing, so too was the society of the heavens. The agricultural revolution created, for the first time in human history, a significant food surplus. This surplus meant that not everyone had to be a food producer. It allowed for specialization: the soldier, the potter, the builder, and, crucially, the priest. A new class of religious professionals emerged, distinct from the old shaman. The shaman negotiated with spirits on behalf of the community, but the priest now served as the official functionary of a powerful, state-sanctioned god. This new priestly class had a vested interest in promoting and codifying the power of their specific deities. They developed calendars to track the seasons, aligning agricultural cycles with religious festivals. They built permanent temples and ziggurats, the first monumental architecture in human history, as physical homes for these powerful new gods and as centers for collecting and redistributing the grain surplus. In essence, the temple became the first bank and government office, all under the guise of divine authority. Religion was no longer just a personal or tribal tool for understanding the world. It was becoming an institution of power, a way to organize large-scale societies. The gods of the harvest weren't just agricultural tools, they were political tools. The king or ruler often claimed a special relationship with these gods or even divine descent from them, legitimizing his authority. The laws of the land were no longer just social contracts. They were presented as the direct commandments of the sun god or the storm god. To disobey the king was to disobey heaven itself. The personal, immediate spirituality of the hunter-gatherer was being replaced by the structured, hierarchical, and dogmatic religion of the city-state. The gods had been promoted, and in the process, humanity had been demoted from a partner in the cosmos to a mere subject. It's a fascinating shift, isn't it? From a world alive with personal spirits to one ruled by distant, powerful gods, it makes you wonder what was lost and what was gained in that transition. Was this development a necessary step for civilization, providing the social glue needed to build cities and empires? Or was it the beginning of a great spiritual disenfranchisement, the moment we traded a world of intimate connection for a hierarchy of power and control? Share your thoughts on this grand bargain in the comments below. We've moved from the wiring in our brains to the spirits of the forest, and now to the great gods of the first cities. But the story of this human invention is far from over. The ultimate promotion, the rise of monotheism. In the ruthless marketplace of the gods, competition was fierce. Pantheons, for all their poetic grandeur, were messy and inefficient from a management perspective. A city-state might have a patron deity, but it still had to pay lip service and temple taxes to a dozen other gods with overlapping portfolios. You had a god for war, but also one for victory. A goddess for love, but another for fertility. It was a crowded boardroom in the heavens, and on earth, it meant a priestly class with fragmented loyalties and competing interests. For a burgeoning empire with ambitions of uniting disparate peoples under a single banner, this divine bureaucracy was a problem. A single emperor ruling over a vast domain finds a much more elegant and powerful ideological partner in a single, universal god. The first major experiment in this divine consolidation was a fascinating and ultimately failed political coup in ancient Egypt. Around 1350 BCE, the pharaoh Akhenaten declared that all the old gods, Amun-Ra, Osiris, Isis, and the rest of the squabbling menagerie, were false. There was only one true god, the Aten, represented as the physical disk of the sun. This was a radical move. Akhenaten shut down the old temples, confiscated their immense wealth, and moved the capital to a new city dedicated to his one god. It was less a spiritual revelation and more a hostile takeover, an attempt to shatter the political and economic power of the entrenched priesthood of Amun-Ra. But the idea, however premature, had been seeded. The many could be reduced to one. Over the centuries, this trend toward divine singularity continued. In Persia, the prophet Zoroaster reimagined the cosmos not as a chaotic pantheon, but as a grand struggle between a single, supreme god of goodness and light, Ahura Mazda, and a single entity of evil and darkness, Angra Mainyu. This dualism was a philosophically elegant way to solve the problem of evil while still maintaining a primary, benevolent creator. This idea would prove to be enormously influential, a template for the cosmic battles that would later define the Abrahamic faiths. And it is within those faiths that we see the final triumphant promotion. The God Yahweh, who would become the God of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, did not begin his career as the sole creator of the universe. The early archaeological and textual evidence is clear. He began as a local tribal deity of the ancient Israelites. He was a storm god, a god of war, one god among many in the Canaanite pantheon, which included deities like El, Baal, and Asherah. Early biblical passages even hint at this, with phrases like, "Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods?" This isn't the question of a monotheist, it's the taunt of a henotheist, one who worships a single god while acknowledging the existence of others. But through the particular political and historical fortunes of the Israelite people, their conquests, their exiles, their struggles for identity, their God grew in stature, his portfolio expanded. He wasn't just their God, he was the best God. Then he wasn't just the best God, he was the only God. The others weren't just inferior, they were demons or illusions or simply non-existent. Yahweh executed a divine hostile takeover, absorbing all the functions of his former rivals. He became the God of the sun, the rain, the harvest, wisdom, justice, and creation itself. The pantheon was dissolved, the board was cleared. A single CEO now sat in the celestial office, demanding total exclusive loyalty. Monotheism wasn't a sudden revelation from on high. It was the result of a long, slow, and very human process of cultural, political, and theological attrition. It was the ultimate divine promotion, born out of the human need for order, unity, and a celestial authority that mirrored the absolute power of the kings and emperors on earth. A contract for the cosmos, morality in the afterlife. With a single, all-powerful God now in charge, the nature of the human-divine relationship changed fundamentally. It was no longer a negotiation among many forces, it became a contract with a supreme authority. And the central clauses of this contract concern morality. Religion, especially monotheistic religion, makes the bold claim that it is the sole source of human morality. Without God, we're told, there would be no reason to be good. We would all descend into selfish chaos. This is perhaps one of the most persistent and successful marketing claims in religious history. But it's demonstrably false. The building blocks of morality, empathy, reciprocity, fairness, altruism are not divine gifts. They are evolutionary adaptations, traits that developed in social primates long before any holy books were written. We are social creatures, and survival for our species has always depended on cooperation. A group of early humans who could trust each other, share food, and defend each other from predators was far more likely to survive and pass on their genes than a group of sociopaths. Morality, in its basic form, is wired into us. So what role did this new, invented religion play? It didn't invent morality, it co-opted it. It took these pre-existing, evolutionarily honed social rules and stamped them with an unimpeachable divine authority. The rule "don't steal from your neighbor" is a pragmatic social convention. But the rule "thou shalt not steal," for the creator of the universe has forbidden it, is something else entirely. It elevates a simple social contract into an eternal cosmic law. This was an incredibly powerful tool for social control, especially as societies grew from small, tight-knit tribes where everyone knew each other into vast, anonymous cities and empires. In a small tribe, your reputation is everything. But in a city of thousands, you can be anonymous. Who is watching then? Religion provided the ultimate answer. God is watching. Always. This invention of a divine, all-seeing surveillance camera is a work of pure psychological genius. It outsourced the role of social policing to an invisible agent who lived inside every person's head. It ensured compliance not just in public, but in private, not just in deed, but in thought. But to make this surveillance truly effective, you need more than just a threat. You need a system of enforcement, and this led to the single most powerful, most terrifying, and most comforting concept ever conceived by the human mind: a divinely arbitrated afterlife of reward and punishment. The world we live in is patently, obviously unfair. Good people suffer terribly, while cruel and greedy people often live in luxury and die peacefully in their sleep. This offends our innate, evolved sense of fairness. The invention of heaven and hell is the ultimate solution to this problem. It is a promise that, in the end, the cosmic books will be balanced. Every good deed will be rewarded, every sin will be punished. Justice may not exist in this life, but it is guaranteed in the next. This concept is a masterstroke. It provides immense comfort to the suffering and oppressed, giving them a reason to endure their hardships with grace. It acts as a powerful deterrent to the would-be transgressor, threatening them with eternal consequences. And most profoundly, it soothes our deepest existential terror, the fear of oblivion. The idea that death is not the end, that our consciousness, our self, will persist, is an almost irresistible promise. It transforms the terrifying, final punctuation mark of death into a mere comma in the grand sentence of our existence. The afterlife was not a place we discovered. It was a place we built in our minds to house our greatest hopes and our deepest fears. It is the keystone in the arch of religious invention, locking morality, justice, and our own mortality into a single, cohesive, and profoundly human-made structure. Written by God or by men. So we have our omnipotent God, our cosmic moral contract, and our eternal system of justice. All that's needed is an instruction manual. And so humanity invented its most audacious creation yet, the Holy Book. The scripture, the text presented as the literal inerrant word of the divine creator of the universe. If such a book truly existed, what would we expect it to look like? We would expect it to be timeless, perfect, universally clear, and free of any error. Its scientific insights would be profound, its moral wisdom flawless, its historical accounts unassailable. What we find instead when we look at the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and other scriptures is something entirely different. We find a very human book. We don't find a single coherent text, but a sprawling, messy library. An anthology of stories, poems, legal codes, prophecies, and letters, written by dozens of different authors in different languages over hundreds or even thousands of years, and then compiled, edited, and redacted by committees with their own agendas. And these books are filled with the fingerprints of their human authors. They are riddled with internal contradictions. In the book of Genesis, for example, there are two entirely different, mutually exclusive creation stories back to back. Was man created last after all the animals, or was he created first before the animals and before woman? The text says both. They contain scientific claims that are not just wrong but reflect the specific, pre-scientific cosmology of the ancient Near East. A flat earth covered by a solid dome or firmament to hold back the celestial waters, a sun that can be stopped in the sky, and of course, talking snakes. More troublingly, they are saturated with moral frameworks that are anything but timeless. They contain detailed instructions on how to buy and sell slaves. They prescribe death penalties for an absurd array of offenses, from working on the Sabbath to being disrespectful to your parents. They endorse genocide, command the slaughter of women and children, and relegate women to the status of property. To argue that these are the perfect, eternal commands of a morally perfect being is not just illogical, it is a moral abdication. The far simpler, more honest explanation is that these texts do not reflect the mind of a god, but the minds of Iron Age men grappling with their world, their culture, and their conflicts. These flaws are not a problem for the theory of human invention, they are its most powerful evidence. A book written by an omniscient God would not look like this. But a book written by fallible, historically situated human beings would look exactly like this. The man behind the curtains. And so our archaeological dig comes to a close for now. We began with a simple quirk of our brain's wiring, our tendency to see patterns and agents where there are none. We saw how that cognitive quirk populated the world with the spirits of animism, a practical and intimate spirituality for our hunter-gatherer ancestors. We watched as the agricultural revolution forced our spirits to grow into powerful, specialized gods to manage the new anxieties of civilization. We witnessed the corporate-style consolidation of those gods into a single, supreme monotheistic deity, a perfect partner for empire. We saw how this new god became the guarantor of a cosmic moral contract, policed by a system of eternal reward and punishment, a brilliant invention to ensure social cohesion and soothe our fear of death. And finally, we saw how this entire system was written down, codified, and declared infallible in holy books that bear all the marks of their all-too-human origins. The god Mirage, that shimmering, divine figure on the horizon, turns out, upon closer inspection, to be a projection. When we finally pull back the curtain on the great and powerful Oz, we do not find a thunderous deity. We find ourselves, our hopes, our fears, our ingenuity, our need for answers, our longing for justice, our desire for community, and our profound creativity in the face of a vast and silent universe. To realize that religion is a human invention is not to diminish humanity. On the contrary, it is to be in awe of it. It is to recognize that we are the creatures who, faced with the terrifying chaos of existence, built intricate cathedrals of meaning in our own minds. We are the ones who wrote the stories, who composed the music, who imagined the heavens. The question that remains for us in our modern scientific age is not where the gods came from. We know where they came from. The question is, having understood the invention, do we still need it? If this journey of deconstruction and discovery resonates with you, make sure you have liked this video and subscribed to the God Mirage. Ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next expedition into the fascinating landscape of belief. Thank you for watching, and thank you for thinking.